Hey guys, it's Ildi. We're gonna do some hip openers for Monday morning. All you need today is two great way to open up the hips. Start out with a cross-legged position. Your right leg is gonna be closer to your glutes, closer to your pelvis than your left leg. The left leg is in front. And just notice what does that feel like on the hips, on the knees. Can you sit up tall or you kind of slouching in? So first just make sure that your spine is nice and tall. You lengthen out from the thoracic spine and from the back of the neck. And you just do some whatever you need to do with your head. Make sure that the shoulders are not all the way up. You actually relax them and then maybe take them a little further away from your ears. And we're going to try to create that space between your earlobe and your shoulders all the time. So the legs are crossed, none of the heels are close to the buttocks. When you look down, you should be able to see a little triangle in there. And the first position is basically just this. If you have any hip issues or any kind of hip replacement, you might need to check in with your doctor in order to be able to follow the exercises. Or you might even know your restrictions right away. So before we go anywhere with the upper body, place your hands down by your side. Press down through the wrist, inhale, and lengthen up, look up, exhale, slouch all the way in. Push the chest back and up. Inhale again, lift up, lift the chin, look up, arch the low back, exhale, and lengthen. And then come to a tall spine, neutral spine but tall. And then the right leg is going to stay where it is. We're going to place the left leg on the top of the right. So we're not moving the knees. Notice that the hips are not as wide as the knees. So if these are my hips, you can see hip bones. These are my knees. So the knees are out to the side. And if the left hip of mine is quite tight, the knee is going to point up towards the ceiling. So I will need to support that. I could do that in a couple of ways. I could grab a blanket and place it under the two shins. And if you feel that there is a lot of pressure holding the right leg, you could always grab your block and place the block under the outside of that right thigh. Now this block could be at any height, depending on what your hips feel. Once you propped yourself up, block under the right knee and the blanket between the two shins if you need it. Again, look down one more time and make sure that the heels are not inside your groins, not close to your groins. You do want to see a triangle. Both shins are parallel to the front of your mat. And then you just hang in here. Inhale and lift up through the chest as we did earlier. Lift the sternum up, look up. Exhale, slouch in and lift the spine back and up. One more time, use the inhale to lift you up. When you lift the chin, you should feel a stretch through the front of the neck. Exhale and slouch in. And then come to a neutral spine. Have the hands down by your side and try to tilt your pelvis backwards, forwards, and backwards. I mean, this is your pelvis. When you tilt the pelvis forward, it feels that you're spilling your water forward if your pelvis was a bucket. And when you tilt the pelvis back, you sit in behind the sit bones and you spill the water behind you from that imaginary bucket. So the movement is anterior tilt. You sit in front of the sit bones. You feel a little stretch in the glutes, the deep rotators. Exhale, sit back, you slouch a little bit. And then if you need to anchor yourself through the hands, you can always have the hands behind you, press down through the fingertips and help the pelvis to roll forward. And then back. Tilt it forward and tilt it back. And then one more time forward. And notice just with the little bit of pelvic movement how much more comfortable the legs are. So you can maybe take the props out. If it doesn't work for you, please leave the props in. There is going to be a forward fold from here. So I would bring the blocks to the front. Maybe the highest height, tilt the pelvis forward, and we're going to release the forearms on the blocks. Now, notice the stretch or notice the discomfort inside the hips. Notice where you sit in. If the hips are tight, most of your body weight probably going to be on your right butt cheek. Could you bring the weight towards the left, even just by moving your upper body towards the left? And then notice if that gives you a little more stretch. And then try to forward fold on that. Now we all have different hips and different upper body and different bodies. So for some of us, folding forward is not an option. For some of us, folding forward all the way and having the elbows on the floor, which I'm not gonna do now, is your comfortable position. For me, staying on the medium height of the blocks, feeling enough stretch in the groins and in the glutes, mostly on the left side, the right side too, but mostly on the left side that is stretching, is plenty to hold it for a minute in here. Breathing would be a good option. And make sure that your breath goes to the side that feels a little tighter. Also notice if you squeeze in your glutes. If you squeeze in your glutes, let the glutes relax. If you're not sure if you squeeze in your glutes, just squeeze them, and when you do that, you can feel that you're lifting off from the floor, and then exhale and let your sit bones slide a little further away from each other. That should feel harder. That should give you more stretch. Breathe. You could always work with the thoracic spine, giving a little bit of arch and look up with your inhale, pulling yourself forward just gently. Exhale and slouch in just a little bit, look down. If you prefer to stay quiet, release the head. Let the back of the neck completely release and lengthen the muscles at the back of your neck. Let the shoulder blades come up towards your ears and tuck the tailbone under just a little bit. That will lengthen the fascia all the way through your spine. Notice again if your weight shifted back to the right glutes. We're going to shift it back towards the left. And we'll take 3 more full breaths in here. Long inhales and even longer exhales. Notice the tension in your jaw. Maybe move your head from side to side. And then start nodding. Flexion, extension. Unsqueeze your glutes. And take a moment to slowly roll up. And when you roll up, lift the vertebrae, stuck the vertebrae on the top of each other until you find a neutral spine. Take those blocks out to the side. We're going to keep working on this posture a little bit. Take your left leg to the front and move your right leg a little bit towards the midline. So it's not going to be that comfortable anymore. The right knee is going to be in front of the right hip. And I know right away that I need to prop up that side. The left leg is going to cross, and your left ankle, the outer ankle bone, is going to be on the outside of the right knee. And for me, that is plenty. So do I want to support? Maybe I do. That is quite a lot of stretch. Maybe I don't. I know I need the support with the block under the right leg. So the legs are not fully closed, but both knees are directly in front of your hip bone, your ASIS, anterior superior iliac spine, where your hip bones are. So this is quite a narrower position. Now, shifting the weight, if the hips are really tight, you're probably going to be seated on your right buttocks. Can you lean towards the left so the weight slowly shifts to the left? Now, instead of pressing down through that left knee, you could grab your left thigh and rotate it out. And then you could just hang on to that. You could also facilitate the stretch by lifting the left heel up while you gently moving the left inner thigh towards the front of your mat. And breathing would be a good idea. Notice how much tension you hold in your glutes. Can you separate your sit bones? And also check on your jaw. When we really tighten the hips and we feel that tension in there, what we end up doing is squeezing the jaw. So relax the jaw. You might even let the lower jaw hang and just move the jaw from side to side. Go gently. Notice if you keep shifting back to the right, just shift your body to the left. Every time you breathe in, you think that you're spreading your sit bones a little wider than they were, and every time you exhale, you just relax back. You're going to take 3 more breaths in here. Not a lot of holding in here. Sit bones widen with the inhale, and exhale is a full relaxation. One more time. Inhale. Widen through the sit bones. Exhale, let go. And then slowly take the top leg down. Move the block out. And the left heel comes to the right outer glutes, and the left knee points directly forward. So in an ideal world, the knees would be on the top of each other, the heels would be on the opposite side of the buttocks, and we would be very comfortable. If this is not an option for you, there is a single leg option. So take the top leg, take the bottom leg and straighten it out, and bring the top leg across with the left heel towards the right outer buttocks. And I'm gonna hold that just for 3 breaths so you guys can get into the single leg position. Maybe this is your pose. And if this feels good and not a lot of work, your option in here is to fold forward. Maybe on a different height of the block, maybe on the lowest height. And that would be your hold. If forward fold is not an option, you could just lean back and be very, very proud of yourself that you actually made it here. If your hips are open enough, you could go back to the full position. Right heel to the left buttocks and left heel to the right buttocks. Now if you're somewhere between the full leg, one leg, the half pose, and both legs bent, I would grab the folded blanket and place it under the right butt cheek. So that would level the hip and it would help the pelvis to tilt forward. So you are in the proper position. Any type of discomfort you feel in the knees right now is a no, is a signal from your brain that it doesn't want you to stay in the position. If you have taken 2 or 3 breaths and the pain, the discomfort is still there, it's your responsibility to get out of this position and choose the single leg one. Option 1, with both leg bent, you just stay right in here. You could always grab your toes, the top of the foot, and give yourself a little massage. You could work with toe extension, toe flexion, one at a time. You could work a little bit of circular movement with the toes, which they never get because we usually ignore those guys in there, and it's very important to be able to move them separately and together. You could also do a little bit of isometric strengthening. You could pull the toes back, have a little resistance with your fingers, and try to straighten the toes. Push the toes back into the hands, but the fingers will not let you to do that. So you create this co-contraction. And you could feel the muscles not only in the hands and the arms, but also in the top of the foot that they are working. And you could do the opposite. You could point the toes the other way, and then you put the hands, the fingers under the toes, and you press down if you were pressing down on the gas pedal and the brake when you're driving. But your hands will not allow you to do that. So again, creating that isometric contraction. And then fully let go, and see if your position released a little bit. Maybe you start playing with the toe, that you might want to fold forward. If that is not a full forward fold, You just grab the blocks and place your forearms onto the blocks. You can release the head. We're going to hold this for 5 full breaths. I need you to let the back of the head just relax. Make sure that your glutes are not squeezed and spread the sit bones away from each other. The wider the sit bones are, the more stretch you get in your glute medius and all the external rotators of the glutes. Relax your jaw. Maybe lift the chest and reach forward through the collarbone and the sternum. And then exhale and release. Tuck the tailbone under and move the sit bones away from each other. And then with the next inhale, slowly roll up. Take the blocks out, lean to the side or back so you can start moving the legs. And before we do the tree position on the other side, just bend the knees, move the props out, and do a couple of windshield wipers. Straighten the legs, shake the legs. And then we start on the other side. So this time, the left leg is going to be closer to you, and the right leg is going to be on the top. Now remember, none of the heels are in your groins, so when you look down, you see a triangle. It might not be a perfect triangle, but it's a triangle. Both shins are parallel to the front of your mat. If you need a support under the left outer knee, lower thigh, and maybe a support under the shins, between the shins. And if this is a lot, if this knee is pointing up, just roll that blanket all the way so you can have a little bit of support in there. Or you might not even need support on this side. This time, the ankle is not crossed over the knee yet. The knees are wider than the hip. That's how you can see that triangle. Lean back a little bit. Inhale, tilt the pelvis forward and lift the chest up. Look up. Exhale, tuck the tailbone under. Let it slouch. This is again when your pelvis is a bucket of water. Anterior tilt, you sit in front of the sit bones, roll up through the sit bones, spill the water forward. Exhale, pull it back, the water spills backwards, and the back slouches a little bit. One more time. Exhale, tilt back, and this time tilt the pelvis forward. And maybe the hips are opened up in a way that you can actually start bringing the hands to the front. If that is not an option, keep the hands by your side or back and just enjoy the position. If you are more flexible, a couple of options in here. Blocks could be the highest height, and you would just rest the forearms on the blocks. The blocks could come lower, medium height, or even lower. Now we're going to hold this for about 5 breaths. So I'd like you to be in a position where you feel no discomfort in the knees at all. Some kind of discomfort in the hips, maybe that the discomfort is coming from a stretch, not from pain. And this is a very tricky decision. It's a very fine line between discomfort and pain. Discomfort is usually a sensation that you can breathe through and is beneficial because it opens up your joints, your fascia, and the connective tissue. Pain is something that your brain is signaling to you to get out of there, get out of that position, because something is not lined up properly, it's not going to get better, and if you keep torquing that knee or that hip, something is going to snap. And this is not the scope of the practice. Try to breathe through the nose, in and out. Maybe after a few breaths, if you made the right decision, you can actually round a little more forward. You could keep the shoulders up a little bit towards the ears and release the back of the neck. You can say no, turning the head from side to side. And then you can say yes, flexing and extending your cervical spine. When you tuck in the chin and pull the shoulders up, and if you tilt the pelvis back, that will create a huge lengthening, a huge stretch through the back fascia. Taking 2 more breaths in here. Spreading the sit bone, relaxing the jaws. And then slowly roll up. Move the props out of the way so we can position the legs. Right leg comes off first. The left heel is moving towards the side. The heel is actually not coming closer to the glutes, but it just moved across the mat, so the right knee can be parallel to the right hip. And I know right away I will need support in that. So will be the left knee, your right knee parallel right in front of your right hip. This is tight. I'm not sure if bringing the blanket here would help at all, maybe a little bit. So no forward fold in here for me. I can keep working on facilitating an external rotation of the right thigh by moving the flesh itself, or I could start lifting that right heel up a little bit. Now notice that this position, the right outer ankle is crossed over the left knee, and this is very uncomfortable. How do we deal with discomfort? How do we deal with the things that are not familiar to us? Do we just get out of there? Or do we just stay and say, all right, I'm not dying. I can stretch this. It's not pain, it's just not comfortable. Squeeze your sit bones for a moment and notice what happens in your glutes and in your jaw. And then exhale and let the sit bones move away from each other. They might just be a tiny bit of movement if the hips are really tight. We do hold a lot of emotions in our hips. So this is the time when you can start thinking about your last conversation with someone who you'd like to have a better relationship. And how could you do that? Smiling, even being in the biggest discomfort ever. Smile. 2 more full breaths. Sit bones are moving away from each other, shoulders relaxed, chest lifted. If you have the flexibility, I should have said fall forward, but that is not an option for me. To come out from this position, you lean, take the leg out. And we're just going to follow for the third position, where the left heel is coming all the way to the right glutes. And in an ideal world, the right heel would come to the outer side of that left hip, and the knees will be on the top of each other. Now we did the half-legged position on the other side, so I'm going to show you how to do that. This time, your left leg would be straight, full knee extension, and your right leg would come across, and the right heel would come to the left outer buttocks. And after you lift out from the hip and the spine, you could forward fold on this one. So this is option 1. Option, the middle, not the half-legged position, not the full position. You roll up the blanket and place it under the left butt cheek. Just the left butt cheek. So you're sitting on the edge of the blanket, and that's going to help you to tilt the pelvis forward. first just notice what you're feeling in here, what are your sensations, and how much or how little you can release the tension from the glutes. Then you can try to add a couple of thoracic movement just to lengthen to the fascia in the thoracic spine. Whenever you create space in the upper back, that will come down to the lower back and it will help to open up the hips a little bit. You could decide to stay upright, or you might want to play with the thought to hinge forward on this, and maybe using the blocks, maybe doing the full forward fold. I'm gonna look up so I can tell you what else to pay attention to. Although your inner thighs are crossed and really close to each other, can you unsqueeze them? Can you unsqueeze your glutes? Think about, if you can't figure out if they are squeezed or not, why don't everybody just squeeze your glutes and let go? And squeeze your glutes again and notice how your inner thighs are squeezing. We're going to let everything go and we're going to try to do one thing at a time. So without squeezing your sit bones any closer to each other, can you engage your inner groin muscles and pull them towards each other? The sit bones are staying wide. And if you think, what the heck is she talking about? I don't know how to do that. This is a very good way to start, to get in touch with our butt and pelvic floor, if you will. There is a connection. And then the next time you squeeze, instead of squeezing your inner thighs, squeeze the pelvic bones, squeeze the sit bones towards each other, but make sure that the inner thighs are not getting into a squeeze. And then let that go. And if you did that a few times, the hips opened up so you can actually come to a more forward fold position. Now, if that didn't happen, it tightened up. Why don't you be brave? Choose the highest position for your upper body. Again, there should not be any discomfort in the knees. If there are, the single leg position is best for you. We're going to take about 5 more breaths in here. Relax your jaw, relax your eyes. Can you spread the sit bones wider? Can you breathe in and out through the nose? Can you take the shoulders away from your ears? Can you smile? And once you're ready, slowly use the blocks to lift your torso, lift your buttocks, take the prop out, and then just lean so you can bring the legs directly in front of you. Have the knees bent, a windshield wiper, and then straighten the legs and shake them out. That's for today. It's a quick one, half an hour. Hope you have had a good session and your hips are all opened. Let me know what you think. Thank you.